Welcome to the deep dive. We are jumping right into what I think is an incredibly rich set of findings today.
Mm.
It's a really comprehensive linguistic analysis focused entirely on the 50 most essential verbs that, power daily fluent English conversation.
Right.
We've been given this extensive transcript of native speakers just talking about everything from their morning routines to their deepest career goals. And it really serves as a live demonstration of how these core verbs operate.
And what's so fascinating here, I think, is that we are defining the scope far beyond just, a simple frequency list.
It's not just a word count.
Not at all. We've synthesized this raw data to show you, the learner, how these specific action words are, strategically employed.
Right.
How they're used to convey identity, to define intent, and to manage these really complex relationships across all kinds of different contexts. We're really looking at the linguistic architecture of English.
The architecture, I like that.
And this raises a really important question. When we strip away all the complicated academic vocabulary, what core reusable patterns emerge from these 50 verbs? Patterns that can instantly boost your communication confidence.
And that is the mission, right? That's what this deep dive is all about. We are offering you a shortcut to genuine fluency by focusing intensely on the verbs that are, frankly, non-negotiable.
Yeah.
The ones you need for professional settings, for social chatting, for travel. By distilling these core usage patterns, we're going to show you how mastering these foundational action words turns that tentative speech into confident automatic expression.
Exactly.
And where better to start than with the verbs that define who we are?
I think that's the perfect place to begin. Because if you want to introduce yourself fluently in English or, describe your background, you really do rely on a very specific set of verbs.
Mm-hmm.
These are kind of the linguistic anchors that define place, time, and personal choice.
Okay, so let's unpack the findings on that first, on personal origins and movement. Because the analysis, it draws this really crucial distinction between verbs that describe a static state versus a dynamic chronological action.
Yes. And we see this right away. You see the use of verbs like come and born to establish geographic origin.
Okay.
So for instance, you hear, I come from Seattle originally, or the clarification, I was born not in New York, but in Connecticut.
So what's the difference there? Why come versus born?
Well, come establishes a sort of present connection to an origin point, even if the speaker doesn't live there anymore. It's like, this is my root.
I see.
But born is a pure past tense state verb. It's essential for your historical identity. It's a fact in time.
And then we get into the verbs that describe longer periods of time, right? The experiences the speakers use, grew up, and spent.
Exactly. One speaker describes how they grew up exploring the mountains and the coastline of the Pacific Northwest.
Right.
Another one mentions they spent their entire childhood in a small town in Texas.
And the beauty of those verbs, grew up and spent, is that they kind of encapsulate this long, almost passive state, don't they?
They do. The environment shaped them over time.
Right.
It wasn't one single action.
Right.
And you can compare that to a verb like moved. The analysis notes one speaker moved to the United States about 5 years ago.
Ah, and that's critical.
It is. Moved is a dynamic, singular action.
Mm.
It signals a decisive change of location and, really, life context. It's a choice.
So the high-level insight for you, the learner, is this. These seemingly simple verbs, they establish whether your identity is defined by a single, decisive, choice-like moved, which is an intentional action with a clear start and finish, or by an extended, almost passive state like grew up, which suggests this long process where the environment was really the main actor.
And using the wrong verb can subtly alter the nuance of your entire personal narrative.
How so? Can you give an example?
Absolutely. If you say, I grew up to the city last year, it just sounds nonsensical.
It sounds totally wrong.
It does. It requires the dynamic, intentional action of moved. So mastering that choice between the static and the dynamic is just fundamental to narrative fluency.
And beyond geography, identity is, it's fundamentally tied to what we do, right? Vocation and learning. So let's see how the findings trace professional development using these essential verbs.
Yeah, this part was fascinating. The educational journey is described using verbs that really map out intent.
Okay.
The speaker studied linguistics at University College London. That's a verb of, intellectual engagement. It's an action.
Been following that.
Following that, they decided to pursue a career in teaching English.
Okay, decided and pursue. Those feel really powerful.
They are. They're powerful verbs of intent and choice. They signal a conscious goal.
Mm.
And pursue it, that implies an ongoing effort towards that goal, not just a momentary choice. It's a journey.
Here's the sequence that I think offers a really practical blueprint for the learner. It's not just a list of facts, it's a story structure for how your career can evolve. The analysis showed a speaker describing a pretty significant professional shift. They initially thought they would work in translation.
Right, thought. The verb of initial passive ideation. It was just an idea.
Exactly. But then a series of actions intervened. They started volunteering at a community center.
Started. The initiation verb. The first step.
Right. And in that process, they fell in love with teaching. I love that verb choice. Fell.
It's great, isn't it?
It-
Fell is a verb of sudden emotional connection. It's a passive dynamic shift. It sort of happened to them, but it changed everything.
And that experience led to the crucial epiphany. They realized the profound reward of helping people learn a new language.
That whole sequence is a roadmap.
It is. That sequence thought, the idea, started the action, fell the emotional catalyst, and realized the epiphany. It provides this really robust structure for describing any unexpected but, welcome change in direction.
Yeah.
So for you, the learner, being able to articulate a shift using that four-part verbal trajectory, it makes your story so much more engaging than just saying, I changed jobs.
It really does. And all of this leads us to the silent fundamental verb that underpins everything we've just discussed. Location, identity, career paths, the verb to be.
The foundational glue. It's so often overlooked, isn't it? It's because it just seems so simple. But why is to be so critical to the learner's identity narrative?
Because without it, you simply cannot establish your current location, your state of being, or the inherent quality of anything.
Okay.
It's the necessary structure for any descriptive statement. If we look at the conversation, to be helps you express three core elements. Identity, I am a teacher. Location, London is an incredible city. And state of being, I am happy with my career path.
Okay, let's break down the functional necessity of that a little more.
Yeah.
When the analysis calls it the constant reliable state verb, what does that actually mean in, grammatical terms?
It means it handles all the jobs that aren't pure dynamic action.
Yeah.
It's essential for forming the continuous tenses.
Yeah.
I am working. The passive voice, the decision was made. And these crucial descriptive clauses, she is tall, they are busy.
So for a learner who is just trying to locate themselves in the world or describe their current mental state.
Exactly. To be is the first verb they truly have to master, because all other descriptions really rely on its stability.
That makes so much sense.
Think about it. If you want to use the past participle to describe your origin, you need it. I was born. Without was, the sentence just collapses.
That's a really powerful way to frame it. So we start with to be and these static verbs to establish who we are and where we are. And then we layer in the dynamic, intentional verbs like moved, studied, and realized to explain the journey. It's a structure that just gives confidence to any introductory conversation.
It absolutely does. And once you can fluently express where you are and how you got there, the conversation naturally shifts to the present.
To what you do every day.
Exactly. And that's a transition from identity to routine.
Okay, so moving from that, that extended narrative of identity to the very concrete moment-to-moment actions of daily life, that requires a complete shift in verbal focus, doesn't it? Mainly towards the simple present tense.
A huge shift. And the daily routine provides this exceptional framework for sequencing these action verbs chronologically.
It's a chain reaction of verbs, really.
It is. The findings detail this chronological series perfectly. We see a very strict morning cycle designed for efficiency. The speaker typically wakes up around 6:30,
Okay.
immediately drinks a glass of water, and then does some light stretching.
And the crucial grammatical takeaway here for you, the learner, is the heavy, heavy reliance on the simple present tense.
Right.
Wake up, drink, do, shower, get dressed.
Right.
This tense is the workhorse of habit. You have to master the simple form of these verbs to describe any habitual action. It's not, I am waking up, which is a continuous action, but I wake up, the habitual action.
Exactly right. And the sequence continues.
Yeah.
After the physical preparation, they shower, get dressed, and prepare breakfast. By 8 o'clock, they're usually ready to start their workday, and they leave for work shortly before that. Notice how each verb acts as a sequential command, just leading to the next stage of the routine.
If you miss one verb, the whole routine just breaks.
It does. It falls apart.
The analysis also provided some contrasting routines, which I think gives us a chance to add some conversational color and explore verbs related to perception and maintenance.
Yeah, that 5:30 a.m. routine.
Oh, that was something else. One speaker describes a 5:30 a.m. wake-up time, which they acknowledge seems extreme.
It does seem extreme.
But they love the morning hours and the quiet time it provides.
I found that 5:30 a.m. routine almost aspirational, didn't you? It makes the 6:30 a.m. speaker look practically laid back.
It really does.
But more importantly, the findings show how the speakers use verbs to maintain this demanding structure.
Right, it's not just about starting early.
No. To avoid burnout, they allow themselves to sleep in until 7 on weekends, but they still try to keep some structure. Allow and try are verbs of management and negotiation. They show the balance required to sustain a routine like that.
And it just reinforces that central theme from the source material that structure provides stability.
Exactly.
The verbs of routine are not just a list of actions, they're the architectural plans for a stable, functional day.
A perfect way to put it. And once that basic structure of the morning is established, we then shift into verbs of consumption and creation.
Okay.
This is where we move from simple individual actions to more complex engagements like cooking and hosting.
And we see a really clear contrast in complexity here. So simple breakfast actions involve verbs like I had scrambled eggs or I ate toast. But creating a healthy smoothie introduces this whole sequence of preparation verbs. They put spinach, banana, protein powder, and almond milk in the blender.
And then there's the sensory result.
Right, which is judged using the verb tasted. It tasted pretty good.
And this transition from having, which is simple consumption, to making, which is active creation, is so crucial.
It is.
Have is one of those foundational 50 verbs that can act as an auxiliary, but here it's also just a simple consumption verb. Make, on the other hand, requires a deliberate act of combining ingredients.
And the real linguistic weight, I think, comes when the findings describe advanced cooking and hosting.
Oh, absolutely.
Because that requires a dramatic increase in the variety and complexity of the verbs used, and they're often in the past tense to describe a single event.
We hear about the effort required to host. The speaker invited friends over and cooked a 3-course dinner.
Right.
They prepared everything from scratch, noting that it took almost 4 hours of focused effort.
And that verb took is so essential for quantifying time and effort. It's a measure of the resources that were expended to execute the verbs prepared and cooked.
It is. And then the social feedback loop is closed with the verb appreciated.
Yes.
The guests appreciated the effort. And this shows you, the learner, that verbs don't just quantify action, they quantify the effort and the resulting social value.
That's a great point. And that smooth transition from action cooking to the social context hosting, it leads us directly into the verbs used for relaying information and, social coordination.
It's a perfect segue.
So let's analyze the sequence that came up related to Jessica's new job. It's a perfect linguistic demonstration of catching up, sharing news, and then planning a future action.
It is. It starts with verbs of perception and gathering information.
The status update.
The starting point is always the status update. Have you seen Jessica recently? I heard she got a new job. Seen and heard are the initial verbs of, remote knowledge.
Remote knowledge, I like that.
They're often paired with the present perfect tense to bridge that past interaction with the present moment.
And then the action escalates to direct contact. I met her for coffee last week, which then leads to information transfer. She told me all about it.
Right. And the news itself is described using these status change verbs. She accepted a position and begins next Monday.
And note the tense shift there.
Yes. Accepted is definitive simple past. He concludes the decision process. It's done.
Finished.
But uses the simple present to refer to a scheduled future event, which is really common in English when you're discussing set timelines.
And the immediate necessary response to that news involved the action verbs call and congratulate.
Of course.
So that detailed sequence seen, heard, met, told, accepted, begins, call, congratulate. It's like a miniature 7-step social narrative.
It is.
And building on this, the speakers immediately move into planning and decision-making, which requires coordinating future actions.
Right, because the news reminds one speaker that they should plan a celebration. And that's the initiation verb of coordination.
And then they move into ideation.
I think it's a brilliant idea. This is a verb of mental consideration. It almost always precedes the more concrete verb, plan.
Right. And then you get the verbs of negotiation and commitment. We should ask what she prefers, and we can choose a restaurant.
Ask and choose. Verbs that delegate responsibility and finalize a commitment.
And finally, the action is finalized with verbs of movement and confirmation. Let's go to that new Italian place and I'll send her a message tonight.
And that entire process, from just a spontaneous idea to a concrete action plan, is mapped out entirely through the confident deployment of, what, maybe a dozen foundational verbs?
That's all it takes.
It just demonstrates that complex social coordination does not require complex vocabulary. Just, efficient deployment of core action words.
The efficiency truly is the key takeaway there. And speaking of efficiency and structure, let's see how this concept of daily action translates into the more structured environment of work, finance, and creative pursuit.
So when describing professional life, the 50 core verbs, they split pretty clearly into two categories.
Okay, what are they?
You have the operational day-to-day verbs, and then you have the higher-level strategic verbs that define your impact.
And this division is so strategic for the learner, especially when you're crafting a resume or even just describing your job in an interview.
Absolutely.
The general day-to-day verbs, they describe the mechanics of getting work done. We see actions like write emails, attend meetings, complete projects, present ideas, and collaborate with colleagues.
Right. These are the necessary verbs of execution. You have to do them.
But the source material really emphasizes the importance of moving beyond just execution to definition.
And this is where the higher-level verbs come in. Those crucial verbs for describing management and strategy. Manage, develop, analyze, implement.
Okay, let's put a fine point on it. Let's use a contrastive example for the learner listening right now.
Good idea.
If you write on your resume, I completed a project with the team, that's fine, it's okay. But if you write, I managed the project scope, developed the new strategy, and implemented the resulting solution.
That's a world of difference.
Right. Those verbs immediately elevate your professional standing.
And the analysis highlights this. It says resumes should include strong action verbs that demonstrate capabilities. The difference between doing a job and managing a function is entirely determined by your verb choice.
So manage implies authority, scope, responsibility.
Exactly. While complete often just implies task execution. This is where strategic verb selection directly influences how people perceive you professionally.
Shifting context entirely now, the same core verbs relate so powerfully to financial security and commerce.
Yeah, and here we get a very specific, very practical key set of verbs. These are non-negotiable for dealing with any kind of transaction.
Okay.
Buy, sell, pay, cost, save, spend. If you can't use these 6 verbs, you really can't conduct commerce fluently in English.
And the application example they gave illustrates their use perfectly in just a routine context, which links back to our earlier discussion of daily actions.
It does. One speaker describes, I went to the grocery store yesterday and bought ingredients for dinner. I spent about $50, which seemed reasonable for a week's worth of meals.
A very standard, everyday description.
But then, the analysis immediately links the financial transaction verbs to strategic planning verbs.
This is the interesting part.
It is. The discussion notes the strategy to plan meals in advance saves money and reduces stress during busy weekdays.
Now, this linkage is so critical. It shows that mastering these verbs allows you to articulate not just the action, I spent $50, but the consequences of that action, it saves money, and the intent behind the action to plan meals. These verbs describe a deliberate lifestyle choice aimed at financial stability.
Which makes the conversation about so much more than just groceries.
Exactly.
Absolutely. The language mirrors the organization. If you can articulate the strategy using precise verbs, it reflects a more organized approach to life. Now, let's move to how we use these same core verbs to define our downtime and our personal interests. The art of doing.
And we see a clear division here between sort of introverted and extroverted hobbies.
We do.
For consumption and relaxation, the verbs are quiet. One speaker loves to read 2 or 3 books per month and enjoys historical fiction.
And the outcome of this action is crucial. Reading helps me relax and improves my vocabulary.
This helps and improves. The benefit verbs.
Exactly. They define the positive consequences of the action read. This is a perfect structure for describing the purpose of any self-improvement activity you might have.
And then in sharp contrast, the outdoor activities are defined by these highly dynamic verbs of movement and exploration. Hike, bike, explore nature.
Right.
The intent is clear. They try to escape the city whenever possible, and this requires physical movement verbs. One speaker drove up to the Catskill Mountains and spent a weekend camping.
And then we get the ultimate sequential hobby. Photography.
Ah,
This
yes.
activity requires the disciplined sequencing of several core verbs. It's not just one action, it's a whole process.
It
You
is.
bring a camera, you take artistic shots, you post some on social media, and then you organize and edit the rest.
That sequence bring, take, post, organize, edit is like a mini process flow diagram expressed entirely through verbs.
It is.
And the crucial note attached to this activity, which is so relevant to our learner, is that any creative hobby demands dedication and practice.
And that phrase demands dedication. That is our direct link between hobbies and language learning.
Here it is.
The expert insight links action to intention. The dedication required to take a great photo and then edit it properly is the exact same dedication required for fluency.
Right. The analysis explicitly states that studying grammar rules is not enough. You have to immerse yourself in the language.
And there are the verbs of necessity and aspiration,
Yeah.
want and have.
Yes.
If you want to be fluent, you must actively want to engage. And if you want to succeed, you have to immerse yourself. This is the moment where the discussion of routine, profession, and hobbies all converges.
Under that one big theme.
The overarching theme of intentional action. The verbs define not just what you do, but why you do it and what is required to achieve mastery.
And on that note of mastery, let's pivot to the strategic core of the findings. Identifying the verbs that build the very foundation of English fluency and how you, the learner, can strategically use them for massive improvement.
So now we arrive at the core verb argument. Why are certain verbs non-negotiable for fluency?
Right.
The reason is because they function not just as independent actions, but as these linguistic chameleons, appearing constantly in compound structures.
Okay, so the findings highlight the fundamental status of have, do, and make. Why those three specifically?
Because they appear in so many expressions and phrasal verbs. They're literally forming the essential framework of English communication. They're the linguistic building blocks to let you express fixed ideas.
Let's consider their utility. I mean, haves is not just possession, right? I have a car.
No, not at all. It's used in common actions like I have a shower or I have lunch, and it's essential for forming the perfect tenses. I finished the report. Do handles the operational side, especially in questions and negatives. Do you like this?
Okay. And make is the verb of creation and construction, but also used in these fixed essential phrases like make a decision or make a mistake.
A mistake, by the way, that every learner will inevitably make.
And should make.
And should make. It's their sheer utility and high frequency in idiomatic expressions that matters. If you can't use make correctly in a common expression, your fluency just stalls.
Right. And the analysis reinforces this by using the daily routine examples, wake up, get up, eat, work, study, play, sleep, to show that these foundational verbs are needed to describe the simplest everyday life.
And if that wasn't enough complexity for you, we immediately run into the phrasal verb challenge.
Oh, this is the big one.
This is where prepositions combine with these core verbs to completely change their meaning, adding, significant nuance and complexity.
For the learner, phrasal verbs can feel like a cruel linguistic trick. The examples they provided, look up, give up, put off, take off, they show how a simple combination can alter the intent entirely. You turn the physical action, look into the mental action, look up information, or the physical action give into the emotional action, give up, to surrender.
We can try to categorize phrasal verbs into two groups for the learner, which might help.
Okay.
You have transparent phrasals like sit down or stand up. They still carry the basic meaning of the verb.
You can kind of guess those.
You can guess them. But the idiomatic phrasals, the ones we need to focus on, have meanings that you cannot guess from the individual words. Take put off.
Right.
Put means to place something, and off suggests separation. But put off means to postpone or delay. There's no logical connection.
That idiomatic usage is where the real danger lies. I remember reading this short anecdote in the research about a learner who understood the verb take and the verb out.
Oh, I know this one.
But when their boss asked them to take out the trash, they thought the boss was requesting they remove the trash from the building for a celebratory meal.
Oh, no.
They had the words, but not the critical phrasal context.
And that's a perfect illustration of why the crucial advice in the findings is not to isolate them. Students must pay attention to how native speakers use these combinations in context. You can't just memorize a list.
Which doesn't work.
It doesn't. You have to hear them and practice them in real situations. That immersion is necessary because the meaning is entirely idiomatic.
And this moves us perfectly into synthesizing the comprehensive language learning strategies that were detailed for you, the listener. These are all described using verbs of improvement and decisive action.
Right. Moving from passive study to active
More
mastery.
exactly.
The source material is adamant about immersion and practice. It encourages listeners to speak English every day, and the specific actions are detailed. Listen to English podcasts, watch movies and TV shows, and actively speak with natives whenever possible.
These are deliberate verbs.
Very deliberate. They're designed to maximize exposure and force usage.
And that routine has to be deliberate. I mean, it's not enough to just passively watch TV. You, the learner, must actively listen for the verb structures we've analyzed today, repeat them, and then try to create a parallel sentence of your own.
And that leads to the critical psychological aspect, overcoming fear.
This is huge.
It is. The advice is direct and, I think, liberating. Don't worry about making mistakes. They help you learn. The fear of error is one of the biggest blockers to fluency.
Absolutely.
You need to push yourself outside your comfort zone and just accept that mistakes are data points for improvement. That's all they are.
The verbs worry and push really define that, don't they? That internal struggle and the external action required for growth. If you worry about grammar, you don't push yourself to speak.
It's a cycle.
Yeah. The finding essentially gives the learner permission to fail as long as they learn from it.
And finally, we return to the theme we established in the daily routine section. Consistency. The crucial belief is that establishing a daily English practice routine helps you improve faster. Even just 15 minutes a day makes a huge difference. Structure provides the necessary stability to ensure that small daily gains accumulate into massive progress over time.
So how does a learner integrate this? How do you actually do it? The source suggests a structured 15-minute routine built around these core verbs.
Okay, what does that look like?
5 minutes of listening to a short clip, focusing on maybe 3 new action verbs. 5 minutes of writing sentences using those verbs in context. And 5 minutes of speaking aloud, describing your day using the simple present verbs we covered back in section 2. That structured, consistent use of verbs, it just guarantees forward motion.
It guarantees that abstract learning turns into automatic, confident expression. And having established the identity, the routine, and the learning strategy, the conversation concludes by projecting these foundational verbs into the future.
Verbs of future intent and growth.
Exactly.
And this shows how these core action words are used to express goals, proving their utility extends far beyond just describing the present moment.
It really does.
Yeah.
The professional aspirations detailed in the findings, they use a very clear hierarchy of intent. The speakers hope to expand the channel and reach more learners. Hope is the baseline aspiration.
Okay.
Then they want to develop an online course. Want is stronger. It implies a desire that's linked to effort.
And the most concrete.
They plan to attend conferences to learn new methodologies.
Yeah.
Plan is the verb of concrete commitment and strategic scheduling.
And you have to notice the necessary verbs that follow those intent verbs. Hope to expand, want to develop, plan to attend. The intention verb sets the stage for the action verb.
It's vital grammatical pairing for talking about the future.
It is. And beyond professional advancement, we see personal and creative goals defined by these same verbs.
We do. One speaker hopes to write a book and has actually been collecting ideas and research for months. The other wants to travel more and create content from different countries. These show that growth is holistic. It encompasses career, creativity, and personal experience.
And the travel example provides this wonderful concluding moment for the deep dive, I think. The plan is to go to Australia to explore Sydney, Melbourne, and the Great Barrier Reef.
A good plan.
It's a great plan,
Yeah.
and they recognize that the Australian accent offers great learning opportunities.
And the entire future vision is built on these foundational verbs. Plan, go. Explore, offers. These verbs define the destination, the action upon arrival, and the specific learning benefit.
And it just reinforces the idea that all future planning, communication, and aspiration relies on the confident deployment of the same 50 core action verbs we've analyzed today. #outro.
Wow, this has been an incredibly detailed journey. We started with the static definition of self, where are you from, and traced the function of verbs through the sequence of a daily routine, the strategy of professional life, and the ambition of future goals.
We've covered verbs across identity, routine, work, and future plans, showing how they actually function in real conversation.
And the fundamental takeaway, I think, is really clear. Verbs bring your sentences to life. They express actions, states, and changes with precise nuance.
They're the engine of the sentence.
They are. And the beauty is that once you master these common verbs, especially the auxiliaries to be, have, do, and make, You can combine them in countless ways,
Right, including the challenging ones.
including the challenging phrasal verbs to express incredibly complex ideas. Learning requires consistent, intentional effort, but the accelerated results are absolutely worth the dedication.
So your task now is active engagement. It's your turn. Review the context we discussed, notice the usage patterns, and try to create your own sentences based on the structures we analyzed today.
You have to move it from your head to your mouth.
Exactly. Move from conscious memorization to automatic, fluent expression.
And that brings us to our final thought for you, the learner. We established early on that routines and structure provide stability in life, which in turn helps you stay productive, whether that's through a strict morning schedule or planned financial saving.
Mm-hmm.
So, if the core 50 verbs we discussed are the essential framework for English fluency, consider this. How can building a deliberate daily linguistic routine around these specific action verbs where you intentionally practice, listen, and use them provide the necessary structural stability to accelerate your English learning journey?
It's a great question.
How do you turn abstract grammar concepts into confident, automatic expression? Think about the verbs you use to define your day and make those the verbs you focus on mastering first.